It's different for sure. I think there was definitely a lot more nerves, not just from the like I'm over in a business perspective. It was like I'm treating people that I grew up with. They know me, they know my family. I'm fortunate that my family employs a lot of individuals in this area through their company. So that kind of, I had a reputation tied to my name, a positive one, before I stepped in. It allowed me to build, steam quickly. But what was great is it went from, oh, that's Robert's boy or that's Bud's grandson. It went from that reputation to, wow, this guy, I had back pain for 5 to 10 years, and I've seen all these providers. I've been seeing these providers for years with no results, and then now I go to this this clinic for a 6 to 8 week period and get out of pain, get back to performing the activities that I love to do, and then prevent it long term. So it was great to change that reputation. I think owning your own business, there's more incentive to get the result as well. You want people to leave with a good taste in their mouth, and I can't speak for Brittany. I can only speak for myself. I know when I worked for someone else, I wanted people to get well, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it meant as much whenever I had my, it's my name, it's my reputation, it's mine and Brittany's.
When at this level, I always ask people, I say, we have to make a decision. Are we PTs who happen to be owners, or are we owners who happen to be PTs? Because if you're an owner who happens to be a PT, then let's get you out of treatment and figure this thing out. But if you're a PT who happens to be an owner, then we might need to find somebody else to help run this thing. And that's okay. You can stay treating. You don't have to. So some people on here, they're like, well, I'm not going to stop treating. It's like, well, then treat. Sometimes we just need to find other people to be able to help us out.
Our business model allows people to treat one-on-one, no pressure to overlap at this point in time, right? As long as we continue to run the business the way that it needs to be ran. And then I think the biggest one is the opportunity that we have laid out through our mission, vision, and core values, which is we want to have a minimum of 3 clinics in the next 5 years. So there is opportunity that they see if they get in now, that they have the potential to grow with our company.
All right, and welcome to this Levels podcast. Hi, my name is Dr. Robbie Woelkers. I'm going to be introducing Dr. Issac Ervin here with Ervin Physical Therapy in just a little bit. Man, I'm pumped to have him on this episode. He comes from a blue-collar family. He's in the middle of Kentucky, like the blue bloods out there in the middle of like nowhere, USA. But he's blowing up, having a massive clinic, OT, PT, him and his wife. They're doing a fantastic job. And I just want you guys to know that on this episode, you're going to hear just a story of someone who started during COVID, him and his wife, they have 2 little girls, and they started during COVID and they started ramping up pretty quickly, hit a couple of roadblocks, and now they are just crushing it. And I want them to kind of come on and share their story with you guys, because you will hear going from husband and wife team to hiring first provider, and then eventually hiring a couple more providers to get out of treatment. So they did this in like less than 5 years, which is amazing, right? Some people don't even get to this point. And Issac, once him and Brittany, once they made this decision to like, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to get out of treatment. And it almost seemed like with brute force, but it wasn't. It was like hard work, good work ethic, but strategy. And they couple those 2 things together. And it's like his words, not mine, strapping rocket fuel to this thing. And now I'm excited to see, where they take this. So let's go ahead and bring in Issac. So Dr. Issac, what's up, man? Welcome to today's podcast.
Not much, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to sit here and jam out with you about, our story and, the pros and cons, the goods and the bads that happen throughout our time. And jam out on those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. We say like, the pros, the cons, the goods, the bad, the scars, right? I always tell people like, I'm okay with you getting a couple scrapes and a couple wounds, right? I just don't want you to have like stitches. We don't need any cuts here, right? I always tell people like, learn from my mistakes, not my successes. So I know that you and your wife, which is awesome, right? A little husband and wife team. You guys started back in like August 2020, which is wild because if you think about it, February 2020 was COVID, right? So you are deep in COVID right now, right? You just graduated PT school, and I know that so where did you go to PT school, and where did Brittany go to OT school?
Yeah, so we both went to Missouri State University in Springfield, Missouri. We both we were there for for 3 years. I got, earned my PT degree. She got her OT degree, graduated in 2018. Went and worked for an awesome company in Illinois for a couple of years just to learn the ropes. You know how it is as a new grad. You don't feel like you don't know what you're doing. You got to get some reps in before, or I felt like I needed to get some reps in before I stepped out and did my own thing. And then, in 2020, this is something that opening a clinic up in my home community is something that I personally have always wanted to do for a while. I don't know why I had the goal. I knew I wanted to get into rehab at a young age in like high school. And then I also had this goal of I want to come back. I want to open up my own private practice and serve this kind of underserved area, bring back kind of modern, up-to-date healthcare. And I had the opportunity to do that. My grandpa, who passed away this January or December, he was right after Christmas. He had this building in downtown Morganfield, which was a 1,200 square foot spot. It had mold all in it. It was just rough. But he came to me and was like, hey, I know this is something that you wanted to do. Here's this building I got. If you're willing to put money into it and to remodel it, I will help you out while you just get on your feet. And he really wanted to support me and my family to move back. So I'm super grateful for him and the help that he gave us. But yeah, it was an opportunity, and it was one of those things. My wife and I, we were sitting and talking, and we decided that we're going to be down either way, whether we start in the middle of COVID or not. And it's like, hey, we might as well start while everybody else is down versus them being just up and thriving. As we thought in regard to the market, we could come in and bring something new and unique to the market and build while everybody else was kind of got punched in the mouth. You know what I mean? From COVID. Yeah. So we decided
that's awesome, man. Because when, a great mindset too, because it's just like, there's so many people, right, that are not able to treat right now, or for whatever reason with COVID and the restrictions or social distancing. And it's just like, well, why open when everybody else is just thriving? And, might as well just hop in when people are surviving and just, let's try to get this thing off the ground. Before I kind of go into some questions on my end, just kind of curious myself, like, how awesome is it actually having the clinic in your hometown? Because I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I'm in Virginia right now. And it's always been like one of my dreams to like go back to Scranton and open up like clinics and serve those people that I grew up with.
For sure.
So just some feedback on opening up in your hometown.
Yeah, it's different for sure. I think there was definitely a lot more nerves, not just from the like I'm over in a business perspective. It was like I'm treating people that I grew up with. They know me, they know my family. I'm fortunate that my family employs a lot of individuals in this area through their company. So that kind of I had a reputation tied to my name, a positive one, before I stepped in. So it allowed me to build, steam quickly. But what was great is it went from, oh, that's Robert's boy, or that's, Bud's grandson. It went from that reputation to, wow, this guy, I had back pain for, 5 to 10 years. And I've seen all these providers. I've been seeing these providers for years with no results. And then now I go to this, this clinic for, a 6 to 8 week period and get, out of pain, get back to performing the activities that I love to do, and then prevent it long term. So awesome, it was great to change that reputation. And then you run into your classmate and you worked on their grandpa, and they're like, hey, I know you worked on my grandma and grandpa. They love seeing you. Thank you so much for what you do. I'm sure that happens in other places as well, but I think there's a little bit more. It definitely, I don't know if it means more, but it's definitely a different feel to it for sure in regard to if you actually have a personal relationship with them. It can complicate things at times, but
it can.
If you get a positive result, I think it's more rewarding almost.
Yeah. And we talk about like just going through different levels, like, in this levels podcast. So it's just like, you open a clinic, and some people start mobile, right? They start with mobile. It's lower expense, lower overhead. And they're driving around. Eventually they might do a sublease space, kind of get somewhere that's a little bit more structure. And, they start treating out there. But you were fortunate, which is awesome, to be able to just go and you might have had to do a little renovation and stuff, but we have a building. We have somewhere that we could call our own, and we do the renovations on. And, before we go into some of the the different hirings and that you had there and growing and scaling, it was just like you mentioned that you have to have a good product first, which is kind of interesting, right? We think a lot of times it's just like we start a PT company and patients are just going to come in, we'll hire some people, we'll fill up, and then we'll remove ourselves from treatment. But a lot of times what we see is that there's some owners that spend that first year really trying to dial in our product and can we actually get people better. And there's other other owners that are just like, they might lack some of that skill set to actually get people better. And it takes them longer to hire or get their next PT because they just can't fill their own schedule. So, which I was laughing when you were saying it, is like, we talk about like identity shifts and going from like treating all the time to like management role. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you had to do the identity shift from going from like Bud's grandson to just the PT,
absolutely.
which is cool. But for you, is it just you had confidence in your skill set? Did you do CEUs? Like, just kind of walk me through like how you made sure that people were getting a good experience when they came to your PT clinic.
Yeah, great question. I went, and when I graduated from school, I did CEUs. I mean, of course, I went and learned a ton with those 2 years whenever I was just a clinician and not in the kind of business management role. So that helps. And I think just the repetition when you get out of school, I think that a lot of the time, and kind of what I'm learning is it's usually the simple things that tend to get people well, right? And picking the low hanging fruit, right? Hey, how are you sleeping? What's your stress like? What's your lifestyle habits? Let's start there, and keeping things simple instead of just throwing all of these dry needling, spinal manipulation, these cool movement screens that I learned, or keep naming things, right?
Yeah.
Just keeping things simple. I think just getting the reps those first couple of years in Illinois at Alton Physical Therapy with that crew would help me to just get confident in knowing that, hey, I know I have the skill set now. I don't need an OCS. I don't need to go get my FAOMT. I don't need these things. And those things are great. And I think that shows that people put in a lot of work and a lot of time to get a certain skill set. But I don't think that skill set is necessary to get people the results that they're looking for.
Awesome,
if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because I think a lot of people do, sometimes they don't have that trust in themselves. And they're like, I got to go and get all these alphabet soups or letters and stuff. And I love what you said. It's just like, no, we just do like a top-down approach. We do lifestyle first, and then we go into participation, and then we go into like, body structure movement, and then we go down to like the actual impairment. I used to do personal training. So, I could have them doing all the cardiovascular and all the other stuff, but it's just like, okay, are we eating out a lot? Okay, we're not doing that anymore. Fast food, yeah, it's over. Coca-Cola, right? Soft drinks, we're getting rid of those. So, and are we walking each day? No, we're not. Okay, so let's get rid of the lifestyle stuff, right? So let's get you upright and get you moving. Let's stop eating fast food, and then let's start walking a little bit. And they're like, that's all I need to do. And they're like, that's it. You'll probably lose about 20 pounds just doing that. It's just like, and they're like, that's easy. And I'm like, I know. Now we could build a habit here. So that's awesome, man. And you were able to do all that. So we have confidence going into this thing. We're getting people better. And what I like about you is that, we call it quick win marketing, or like goodwill marketing. And it's just like, a lot of times people run Facebook ads and they want to get a couple people in, and then they see them, and then they don't get them to the finish line. They don't graduate. They don't get a review. They don't get a referral. They don't get a reactivation. And they're like, well, now I need to run Facebook again. You run another one, and then there's no back end, right? Because it's just like, we're not getting people to the progress summary, we're not getting them to discharge. But for you guys, you spent a lot of time like internally being like, no, when a patient comes in for eval, like, we need to get them to the progress summary, we need to get them to discharge, so that they're going to want to leave a review, they're going to want to leave a referral, they're going to want to leave or come back when they need us in the future. And do you think a lot of that was because you were in a small town community, you wanted that goodwill word of mouth, or is that just something inherently that you guys strive for between you and Brittany?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of it had to do with being in a small town and knowing people, that there was more incentive to get the result. I think owning your own business, there's more incentive to get the result as well. You want people to leave with a good taste in their mouth. And I can't speak for Brittany. I can only speak for myself. I know when I worked for someone else, I wanted people to get well. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it meant as much whenever I had my, it's my name, it's my reputation, it's mine and Brittany's. And I think there was maybe a little less of that when I worked for another place. Not sure why. I'm not saying I didn't care about those people and didn't want them to get better, but there's a huge emphasis for sure when we open on day one for us to be like, hey, we want people to get a result and to graduate from us. And now the graduation process and that kind of conversation from initial eval to discharge has changed significantly in order to get people to more frequently hit the finish line. And that's kudos to you and your team at Rehab CEOs. But yeah, huge emphasis for sure. And it's something that we continue to work on and develop and train our new hires in how to do that effectively.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and I always this is why I love doing these, because, in my head, I'm like, don't put your last name up on the building. Like, don't do that, right? Because people are going to only want to see Issac, right? And we'll talk about you getting out of treatment as an owner with your name on the building in a little bit. But then you start saying there and you're like, no, having my name on the building is a great thing because that's my reputation. And I need to build something here that when they hear Ervin's, like, you got to go to Ervin Physical Therapy. Like, it's awesome. And it's just like what do you want people saying with that? Which is great. And I'm pumped, that this is where you're at and you get to experience that. And then also, your wife as well. So we have Brittany that came in. Brittany's an OT, correct? And,
yes.
And you guys met in undergrad in physics class, which is pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of my wife. I was flipping omelets and she came through my line. Your wife was sitting next to you in physics class. So there you go.
That's right. Were you working like the hall, like the food hall?
The dining hall. Yeah, I was in the dining hall. And they had like a little omelet station, and I was flipping them every Sunday. You came through, you tell me what you want, and I make it. And then she came through, and then we were talking because you got to sit there for like 10 minutes while you cook the dang thing. And then she left, and then she came back, and her friend had a little note said "Omelet Boy" and had her number in it, and then the rest is history. So there you go.
Nice.
So
just for people that are listening, if they're ever with you or hanging out with you, that you're making breakfast then, right?
Yeah, well, 100%. Yeah. If you come to my house, you will have omelet made to order, and we make this thing called either sausage souffle or French toast casserole. You get one of those two. Those are like the staples here at the Woelkers house. 100%. Yeah, and then which is cool because my wife was very involved in our business. She didn't really have a title. She's a social worker, so we kind of call her like the director of happiness. Also behind the scenes, she just put all the staff fires for us, right? But you don't need that person because you guys are building a really good culture. And I think that goes back to your foundational level where you're sitting there, you just start up, and it's you and your wife, Brittany, and you guys ended up hiring an admin. And did you wait like a couple months or did you hire an admin like right away?
Yeah, great question. We hired one immediately. It was August 10th, I think, is when we started. And then literally a month later, we had an admin hired. It was just, we were finding out pretty quick that due to having the reputation that we had, people were wanting to give us a shot. And I think COVID too, right? People were tired of being in their house. They saw there was something new was going on. It was an opportunity. People, even though they were sitting in their house at home, people still had, their back still hurt, their neck still hurt, and they still had pain. So there were still musculoskeletal issues to address, right? So filled up, it was a pain in the butt to try to figure out how to get a hold of the insurance companies and do the thing, get authorization and get their benefits and review the benefits with the person and answer the phone whenever trying to answer the phone when somebody else was in a treatment session, right? It just was, we knew immediately that it was going to affect the flow of things and affect the client experience. So we decided to hire somebody within that first month, which allowed us to grow pretty quickly. By the end of that year, we were, seeing, a couple hundred visits a month by December.
So, and that's interesting because a lot of people, because it was you and it was Brittany treating like two providers, a lot of times what people do is they'll have a PT and they'll say like, well, let me go get a PTA or a PT next, and then I'll bring on an admin, which is kind of cool that Issac and Brittany just kind of realized that to them, like this, we're not doing this. We're going to bring in an admin. I don't know what it costs, but we're going to figure this thing out. So you bring on an admin, and then you guys were able to fill up your schedule or her schedule pretty quickly, right? Within the first couple of weeks, couple months. And then eventually what happened, and you're there at that level for 5 months, 6 months, or how long were you guys there before you went to your PTA?
We ended up hiring a PTA in January of 21, I think roughly, maybe January, February, March.
So like 4 months later.
Yeah. So around that time, Sabrina came on, and Sabrina was awesome. She helped us kind of maintain that volume. I think we kind of, we got close, really hovered between 250 and 300 visits. At that time, we got there really quick, and then we just kind of stalled out there until May of last year, right? So that'd be 23. So a couple years of plateaued at the same level. Grew really fast, had the skills, I guess, clinically, got results, and just had just knew that we needed to get some help, but that was about it. It was just kind of luck to get to that point, and we didn't know how to get to the next, we didn't know how to take the next step. So we just kind of spun our wheels for a couple of years, working really working really hard, but not getting to where we wanted to get.
Yeah, man. And it's interesting at that level that when you have owner and you have admin, and to be fair, like because Brittany's also a provider, you had owner, admin, owner, right? Treating. And eventually you're almost looking to hire your second provider because Brittany was there. And, you know, that's why you guys were able to go really quickly. Husband and wife working at home together, brainstorming, communicating. And then eventually we got a PTA in there. And we see this a lot where if someone goes to hire that first like physical therapist provider and they either hire a PRN or part-timer, which, you know, PRN and part-timers get you PRN and part-time results. Then the other thing is when you hire a PTA, and I love that you said, Sabrina, that you hired, she's like, she was great, 100%. And it's just like, yeah, great people, but it causes you to get stuck there and the reasons that we believe that most people get stuck when they do owner, admin, and then your first provider hire is a PTA is because the owner can only do so many evals by themselves to fill a PTA schedule. So it almost feels like you as and I'm going to kind of speak for what I'm seeing. And then Issac, I'll bring you back in and see if that's kind of like how you felt. But we typically see that like, you know, the owner has to do like 10, 15 emails a week to fill their schedule and the PTA schedule. They're doing all the progress summaries, all the research, all the evaluations, all the de-escalations if any issues come up. Sometimes you're doing all the dry needling. So you get to do all the needling, right? So, and because of that, you kind of you're a very high producer role. You're treating all the time. You're doing all their cosigns. And for whatever reason, it's just like the thought of hiring somebody else is just like, it just seems like more chaos. And eventually what happens is that you try to fill the PTA in your schedule, but every time you go to hire, it's just like their schedule falls apart because you're taking time away from producing to go hire. And then like, you're just stuck in this weird cycle and kind of, because you mentioned 4 months to get full with you and your wife. And then PTA, you got full with the PTA, but then you couldn't break that cycle for almost a year and a half. Is that correct?
Right.
On about
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, spot on. You hit the nail on the head. It's that she was a PTA and part-time, right? So really didn't. So it was kind of a double whammy there. She wasn't able to build her own schedule. So I was doing the evaluations, just like you said, signing all the notes, doing all the things. And, you know, what she allowed me to do was just get more visits in the door. It didn't change my role or responsibility at all. I still had to do just as many. I had to do more evals. I had to, you know, treat more hours, right? Because I still needed to, you know, I still was trying to grow. But I still had to do all the other things. I still had to try to manage, you know, the finances. I still had to try to do marketing, still try to do workshops, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So you're just
communicator roles.
Yes. Trying to do
the higher dollar roles. Yeah.
Yes. So you just get in a rut and you're just kind of spinning your wheels at that point instead of versus, you know, hiring, you know, a PT full time, which we were fortunate enough to do this year a couple times over. And it allows, you know, especially if you get the right culture fit, you just learn pretty quick that, hey, I've got they train them on our processes and our systems, and they can just take the ball and run once they understand the system instead of, they understand the system, they can do the thing, but legally they can't do the full job. So you've got to step in and still fill in. So
we always say that, like, you know, in Issac, when at this level, I always ask people, I said, we have to make a decision. Are we PTs who happen to be owners? Or are we owners who happen to be PTs? Because if you're an owner who happens to be a PT, then let's get you out of treatment and figure this thing out. But if you're a PT who happens to be an owner, then we might need to find somebody else to help run this thing. And that's okay. You can stay treating. You don't have to. So some people on here, they're like, well, I'm not going to stop treating. It's like, well, then treat. Sometimes we just need to find other people to be able to help us out. But before kind of like we move on from this level, just kind of sitting here for a second, I know this level is brutal. Like it is ate me up and spit me out about 3 times when I open each location, just because I didn't, I went against my own kind of commandments for opening clinics. It's like, you know, we want owner out of treatment, leadership team in place, max out, oversubscribe each location, have a hiring pipeline, and eventually have a reserve because you have to have money to open. And I was kind of like going against the grain with most of that stuff. So when I would open clinics, or when I first started, it was just like I was very heavy in producing and treating and doing workshops on the weekends, doing workshops at night, trying to figure out Facebook ads, all this stuff. And because of that, like I just wasn't showing up how I needed to as like a dad. And you had 2 little girls. Well, still have 2 little, Ezra and Anna, which is awesome. I have Stella and Hartley, so I like your names, and my names are pretty cool. So there you go. But for you at this level, just kind of like as a husband, as a dad, as a you know, business owner, as a PT, like you're just wearing a lot of hats right right now. Like when you look back at that period, and I know you're proud of, who you were and how you pushed through, but like, reflect back on how you were showing up as an owner, as a dad, as a husband during that period. And were you happy with it, or were you kind of like, I need to make a change here? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. I was showing up exhausted. I was in all aspects. I was as a business owner, I remember treating, if I got a gap, I would like lay face down on the table and like sleep. I remember doing that a lot. Like I would just like, I'm gonna lay on this table or at the end of the day, I'd be what I'd be done with lunch. I'm gonna lay on the table before I do the notes. I'd lay down, look up, and it's like an hour and a half later. There's drill on the floor. I'm just exhausted, right? So I was totally white, low energy lifestyle. My lifestyle that I was living wasn't great. I wasn't sleeping a lot, eating whatever I wanted, drinking whatever I wanted, just to try to manage the stress, which was causing more stress to me. And they put a stress on and strain on my relationships relationship with my wife personally. I wasn't there to be as good of a dad as I could have been, right? So a year of that, a light bulb went off and I was like, hey, I've got to start making some changes. So even though we weren't growing business wise at that point in time, I think that those couple of years, I really focused on my personal health and, personal development in regard to, hey, how do I do this, but also, be the best husband and dad that I can be as well. So that was a huge focus of mine for a long period of time. And I think my metric there is the reviews that my wife gives me. And they've been getting better over time. They're a lot better now than they were in 21. I'll tell you that right now.
Hey, what was your experience at Ervin Physical Therapy? Good. It's like now they write book reports. Yeah, I heard a quote once that said, tired leaders sleep, and you actually fell asleep.
So absolutely, heck yeah, I was smoked, man. I couldn't hang, but
those days, man.
Yeah, for sure,
But I had my wife call me once, and she's like, blow my phone up. I ended to work. I was out in our rural clinic, and it was like 7 o'clock at night. And I was like, let me just hop on a hot pack. Let me just, the day was long day. Let me just hop on a hot pack. And she is calling my friend, she probably thought I was in a car accident or something. And I fell asleep at the clinic. It was like 11 o'clock at night. Just fell asleep at the clinic. It just took a little snoozer. And oh my, she wasn't too thrilled with me. Not that I fell asleep, just that the lack of communication during that time. Poor thing was probably tired and stuff like that. But how we show up matters. Eat, sleep, drink, right? We got to kind of take care of ourselves. It's like if we're not sleeping properly, if we're not eating healthy, and if we're definitely drinking or whatever that looks like, or partaking in other things, like things start to unravel pretty quickly. And then you were able to be like, hey, we got to make a change, which is awesome. And I love that when we first linked up, you're like, hey, if I want different outputs, I need different inputs here. Like we're doing this thing, we're probably just doing something wrong. Like I'm trying hard and I got brute force of this thing because I'm blue collar. This is what I was told to do. Just push through. But eventually it gets to the point where you're just in a level 2 opportunity, but you want to have a level 10 success. And that kind of current setup, it's just like, hey, this is the expectation. It's like, this is all you can do with you, your wife treating, having an admin and another provider. It's just like, well, first of all, we have a 3-to-1 ratio from provider to admin. So your current admin couldn't do enough work to fill your schedules anyways, because they were oversubscribed in work. And then your PTA was only part-time PRN. So they were getting part-time PRN results. And then you went and decided to hire your first physical therapist full-time. Which I remember the conversation. You're like, I don't know, brother. Like we're in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's going to want to come work for us. And now all of a sudden, I think you hired 2, 3 since then. Like, walk me through your first PT hire, and then how did that kind of go about? And then you kind of just went quickly. Like you went from like 200 visits a month to like 800 in a matter of like a year and a half. So it's just like, so walk me through the first one, and then like, how did you guys like get your hiring pipeline squared away?
Yeah. So we made a big change. Let's go back to May of 23. That's when we decided to really change a lot. We changed our systems up just because we were stuck there from 21 to January 21 all the way to May of 23. And finally it was like, hey, we've got to change something, right? I don't recall what caused the clarity to occur, but it was like, I was sitting there one day, I was like, we need a change. So we changed, we had a friend that was using you guys. Shout out to Lindsay down in Rome, Georgia.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Lindsay. Okay, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yep. So she's
Crushing it.
was a great friend of ours. She is. She's doing awesome down there. But she reached out to me and said that, she loved you guys, and so we decided to, jump ships then, and so started to grow at that point in time. Right, change our systems up, start implementing some of the systems just to make the business run effectively on the front office side and even the back office side with billing and coding and things like that. And then, we got to that point of hiring, and just like you said, it was like, there's always doubt, right? We got this just kind of
the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and
yeah,
doubt.
it's just like, yeah. So it's just you're sitting there telling yourself this narrative that, we live we live in Morganfield, Kentucky. There's only this town has 3,000 people in it. There's no interstate that runs through here, so it's like you've got to drive to Evansville, which is 45 to 50 minutes away to even get to an interstate.
No one's going to want to work out here.
No one's going to want to work out.
Feeling sorry for yourself. Why do we open this thing?
Absolutely. So, but and that's always going on in the back of our head. But but you also, one thing I did know is, hey, we can work, and I knew we had an exceptional culture and a unique business model that the right person would be willing to travel to work for. And so we put the ads out, and then within about a month, Trevor applied for that, our first full-time hire. We also at that same time she was a year younger than me, but Maddie, she moved back to the area and had her PT degree, and I just lucked out with her, but she's part-time right now. So we went from me and my wife within all the way up to November. And then in December and January, we had hired PTs, 2 of them, one full-time, one part-time. And then we immediately jumped in May, we were at 250. By the end of the year, we were around 400. And then as soon as those PTs started, we jumped up to the 500s, mid 500s in January. And then it just continued to grow since then to where, close to 800 visits for the month of July. So just growing like crazy. We just hired another PT that is driving, another thing that Trevor and Yusra, she just started last week. She's driving from, they're both driving from Evansville, which is like an hour drive one way, right? So they're driving from the area where there's a ton of clinics, a lot of places to work, to come work here because That's a few awesome. Things, and they're things. It's our culture, right? I think our culture is unique. Our business model allows people to treat one-on-one, no pressure to overlap at this point in time, right? As long as we continue to run the business the way that it needs to be ran. And then I think the biggest one is the opportunity that we have laid out through our mission, vision, and core values, which is we want to have a minimum of 3 clinics in the next 5 years. So there is opportunity that they see if they get in now, that they have the potential to grow with our company and be able to have the lifestyle that they're looking for and the career opportunities that they're looking for, so that they can make a living that and have a career that they're satisfied with, versus being stuck at just your traditional fulfiller pay, which is capped due to the role and responsibility that you have as a clinician.
That's awesome, man. And I love that you said, because you keep using the word culture, and it's just like, you're creating a vision that's really big for these guys to fit their careers inside of. And from a financial standpoint, it's just like, well, I got to get out of survival mode where, I have to be able to pay my personal expenses and my business. And then we kind of get into that, like the next mode where it's just like, okay, cool. I have enough money to cover my business expenses and I'm making some money. So we get into that kind of comfort level. And then eventually it's just like, well, now I need to pay my leadership team more and my team more. And, that's kind of like the level where we're at right now, where it's just like, I'm bringing on all these people. We're starting to fill up. We're starting to make some good profit coming through. But the other thing that starts to drop here for you is that, like, I need to manage these people. It's like, right. So you get to the point you're just like, I got all these people, which is cool. So once you make a decision that, like, hey, I got to hire a PT, and you hired your PT, you guys had a good product. So some people are like, yeah, well, you got, you were able to fill. What if you hire and you don't fill? It's just like, well, no, we had that thought. It's just like, but we hired and then figured out how to fill. And then more specifically, what we do is we get oversubscribed, and then we hire and then we fill. So it's just like, we don't hire and hope. We get oversubscribed, and then we build up some pressure here, and then we go ahead, and there's a way to, bring people on and on board properly. Now, Isaac's sitting here with all these providers. You got to manage them, because if nobody's managing them, then they're going to do their own thing, or they're going to start to lose interest, motivation, right? That culture starts to go away. So Isaac, just walk us through like how you were feeling with all these employees now, and you're still in a heavy producer role, like 90% of your time is producing and treating patients. And you made a decision like, I need to now get out of treatment. And, now you're taking on this new identity and you're not past it yet. You're still learning this phase, but kind of like, when did you make a decision? And now how is it kind of transitioning from a producer to a unifier?
Yeah. So I think the decision was made when knowing what our mission and vision was. I knew that, like I
You
said, I
did a
knew
little
we
survey during the
wanted,
quarterly planning.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah, we wanted to, I knew the mission was to, hey, we need to, if I our mission's to help, it's kind of a classic PT mission, help motivate people in the tri-state area to help improve the quality of life, right? So if we want to do that, I can treat my 60 visits a week and help a few people, or we can grow this team that has the same mission and help hundreds and thousands of people. So it's like, it was focused on the mission-based decision, and then that's how we decided. It's something that I've wanted to do since we started with you guys, and now just fortunately we've got the opportunity to do that just through implementing systems, right? Still working hard, but working smart as well, right? Making sure that we grow before we hire. Recently, due to the hiring season, we've kind of, we got a couple of hires coming on. We've got user started, but then in September, we've got an OT coming on as well to take over for Brittany. And we've also, I don't want to leave them out. We have the PTA that started. He's fully subscribed. And then we also have a part-time OTA to kind of help my wife over with the services she provides. So we have a lot of providers.
A lot of providers.
Yeah. So
awesome, man.
We are, we're in this hiring season, so we had to jump on the hiring, even though we're kind of in a slower phase of business, even though our business is still growing.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to a super busy and super fruitful fall and winter for sure.
Yeah, and that's the cool part about like seeing your transformation is just being more strategic now and knowing that like, hey, our numbers are a little down, right? Good time of this podcast is like the summertime, right? And it's just like, but we expect that, right? We expect to be a little bit slower here during the summertime. But we also know that there's a hiring season here. So we're going to scoop up a couple providers and be ready for our busy season, which is the fall. So instead of hiring during the busy season and, dealing with high salaries and wages and all this other stuff, it's just like, let's bring them on now where it's a little lighter and let's onboard them. Let's get them trained. Let them learn the Ervin Physical Therapy way. And now when it comes the busy season, they're ready to rock and roll, which is awesome. Because that's that bit, you sustain, you grow, you sustain, you grow. And, I think that's a huge, huge thing that I'm seeing just with you is just being more like future, strategy versus like in the moment strategy or reactive. Sure. A lot of owners are very reactive, but you're always thinking ahead. So with that being said, while we start wrapping up, man, like what's next? Like what is the goal coming up? And, now that you're in that unification role and you're learning how to do that, walk me through like, where you're at right now and how we're going to get you to the communicator role.
Yeah, great question. We've got, I'm treating twice a week. So it's new to this, right? So I've been a week and a half of being in this kind of unifier role where I'm managing, where I'm really focused on marketing, making sure that my team is full and keeping work ahead of them versus being reactive and making decisions kind of in the moment, looking kind of down the road and making sure that we've got what we need in place to make sure that there's success there. So really focused on that. And focus on for the rest of this year, it is basically making sure that I'm tending to the team, I'm managing the team. I am building relationships within the community and marketing and doing all the things I need to do on that marketing and sales aspect. But then I think it's also about building systems and making sure that we've got everything honed in all the way from the leadership team. I have some individuals. I've got an individual that's like I call him like an interim office manager, and I've got an interim clinic director that was kind of slowly taking over my roles. So by the end of the year, they're full-blown office manager and a clinic director that is just kind of running the ship. And all these providers are going to be full. And which would put us at more like 1,000 visits a month, kind of 1,000 to 1,200 visits in a month, which would be awesome. And then we will be set up to open up a clinic next year, right? Because we've got our systems in place. Our leadership team has had some practice and got some reps under their belt. I'm out of treatment. It goes to be out of treatment completely after Labor Day, and so we've checked all of those boxes so that come next year when it's time to open up, there's always going to be a little doubt in the back of our head. I think that's human nature, but
Yeah.
There's a
There's
lot
always
of
risk.
confidence going
Always
into
risk.
it that, hey, we put the work in, we've done the right things. Now let's open another spot up. You guys, that I'm going to put, that is the other individuals that we choose to lead that. Heck, we've got the playbook. Take it and run, and they can
Awesome,
just
man.
go and do it.
Yeah, and I think for you, it's just like, and you hit the nail on the head. It's just like, well, first I got to learn how to be a manager of my team, and then I got to learn how to be a manager of my leadership team, and then that's kind of like that transition into that uniform. Like, because you think right now is cool. Like, wait till you got your leadership team hiring, onboarding, and training people, and you don't even have to do that anymore. It's like let's go. So then that way you move into that more operator role where you're just opening clinics, hopefully, and we'll look at a heat map. We'll figure out where that next clinic's supposed to be, but maybe Evansville, maybe, I don't know. So especially if you got people down that area, we'll have to look and see where number 2 is, man. But I'm excited for you guys. I know when you first came on, we could always kind of tell, who's going to do well and who might get a little lost in the shuffle. But for you guys coming in, hungry, blue collar, willing to work, have a why, a vision, right? And it's just like, you just kind of point you in the right direction and be like, go do this. And you guys just hit every single little milestone that we threw in your way. And I think it's just a testament to you and Brittany's strong relationship and everything that you guys are doing. It sounds like a privilege to work for you guys. And I'm just pumped to see your growth, brother. So thank you so much for hopping on today. Guys, if you are watching this to the end of the podcast, just make sure you comment below, show Dr. Issac some love, and Brittany. So Brittany's not with us today, but go ahead and show Brittany some love as well. Let her know that, we're celebrating these guys, because it's hard, being in PT and in OT and speech and all this, and owning something is hard. So before we wrap up, Issac, get any parting words before we wrap up for today?
I think the biggest thing is I can't thank you and your team enough for the support that you all have provided. Like you said, owning a clinic and owning a business can be lonely. I think that if you're in a situation that like I'm in, where you started a business, we go to school to be clinicians. We don't go to school to be business owners and leaders. So make sure that you are getting help. I mean, you don't have to, but you can also spin your wheels for years doing the same thing and wondering why you're not getting a result. The team at Rehab CEOs has been able to do that effectively, all the way from the marketing side and SEO optimization and websites and the ads that are generated through that team, all the way to on the business side, having front office systems, having sales and marketing training, having clinical sales, right? Being in your sessions and being able to say, hey, this is what needs to be said in order to pre-frame the expectation for the plan of care, and then kind of appropriately graduate someone. I mean, there is, I think people in our profession, you hear about people saying it's an art to be a physical therapist. I think it can very easily be systematized and to make it effective. And I think that's what your all team has done for us. We started with you guys in May, had about 250 visits. Now we're up to 800. We had 1.5 full-time providers at that point in time. And then now we are at roughly, let's see, it'd be 1, 2, 3, we're around 4 to 4.5 now that we have, I think 4.5 now that USRA started. So a big change, a big jump in that very short period of time. So appreciate you and your team and all the support that you all provided to us.
Awesome, Issac. Well, hey man, thanks for the kind words. But I always tell people, if we're not going to take, if we're not going to take ownership of your failures, we're not going to take credit for your success. So a lot of this stuff is all you, brother. So I'm pumped to have you here. But again, I'm excited to see you transition from this unifier role into that communicator, because once we get another clinic there, man, you're going to give you some of your current leadership positions an opportunity to even grow their careers further, and some of your other providers and stuff. So we have a lot of momentum, man. Now it's up to you not to lose it. So there you go. So awesome. Yeah. Awesome stuff, man. Well, hey, thanks for your time today, Issac, and always a pleasure, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right. See you, bye.
See ya.